He looks at you, but he doesn't really see you. He talks to you, but his words just skim the surface. And you feel that growing emptiness inside, that feeling of being invisible to the one person who should see you most. But what if I told you that Louise Hay discovered a way to activate a hidden switch in his primitive brain? A switch that, once flipped, transforms him from indifferent to completely protective of you. I know what you're thinking. Just another theory. Another empty promise. But stop for a moment. What I'm about to reveal isn't just a communication technique. It's something that touches the deepest roots of the male brain. Something Louise Hay discovered after years of studying the mind-body connection. Have you ever noticed how some women seem to have this magnetic power? I'm not talking about physical beauty. I'm talking about something much deeper. It's like they have the secret key to accessing that part of the brain that says, "Protect this woman." And you've always wondered, what do they have that I don't? The truth is, it's not what they have. It's what they know, how to say, and how they say it. Imagine his brain has an old house with many rooms. Most women always knock on the same door, the logical door, the rational door. But that door is often closed, or worse, he has learned to ignore it. Louise Hay discovered that there's another door, a secret door that leads directly to his primitive brain, that part of him that's programmed to protect, to care for, to put you at the center of his world. But here's the part that will make you think. This door doesn't open with the words you think. It doesn't open with reproaches. It doesn't open with direct demands. It doesn't even open with extreme sweetness. It opens with something much more subtle. It opens with a phrase that Louise Hay perfected after studying thousands of relationships. And now you're probably wondering, what is this magic phrase? But before I reveal it, I need you to understand why it works. Because if you don't understand the mechanism, you'll use the right words, but with the wrong energy. And the wrong energy can turn even the most powerful phrase into a failure. Listen, I know what it feels like when he comes home, and his gaze passes right through you, like you're a piece of furniture. I know what it means when you talk, and he nods absent-mindedly while looking at his phone. I know what it means to feel small, invisible, unimportant. It's like you've become part of the background of his life instead of being the star. But tell me something. Have you ever observed how he behaves when he senses that someone he loves is in danger? I'm not talking about physical danger necessarily. I'm talking about genuine emotional vulnerability. In those rare moments, something lights up in his eyes, something primitive, something that awakens the man inside him. Louise Hay understood that the secret isn't to fake vulnerability. The secret is to communicate your authentic vulnerability in a way that reaches that primitive part of his brain, that part that's programmed to respond, to protect, to act. Here's where it gets interesting. The male brain has an ancient alarm system. It's like an emotional smoke detector, but most of the time this detector is off or set to minimum sensitivity. Why? Because it's been bombarded by too many false alarms, too many demands, too much drama, too much pressure. So it's become desensitized. But Louise Hay found a way to reactivate this system without sounding like a false alarm. She found a way to speak directly to that part of him that wants to be your hero, your protector, your safe haven. But she does it in a way that doesn't put him on the defensive, in a way that doesn't make him feel criticized or inadequate. This discovery stemmed from an observation Louise Hay made about herself. She noticed that in moments when she felt most authentic, most connected to her true essence, the people around her reacted differently. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. It wasn't the words. It was the energy behind the words. But here comes the part that might surprise you. Louise Hay discovered that there's a fundamental difference between how the female and male brains process emotional vulnerability. The female brain is designed for connection through emotional sharing. The male brain is designed for connection through protective action. This means that when you share your emotions the way you would with a female friend, his brain doesn't know how to process that information. But when you communicate your vulnerability in a way that activates his protective instinct, suddenly everything changes. Suddenly you become his priority. Stop for a moment. Breathe deeply. Feel the air entering your lungs, because what I'm about to tell you now will completely change the way you see communication in your relationship. The phrase Louise Hay discovered isn't what you think. It's not, "I need you." It's not, "I feel neglected." It's not even, "I miss you." It's something much more subtle and infinitely more powerful. But before I reveal this phrase, I need to tell you the story of Susan. Susan had been married to Mark for 8 years. 8 years in which she had felt increasingly invisible. Mark was a good man. He worked hard. He was faithful. But it was as if he lived in a bubble. When Susan tried to talk about her feelings, he would stiffen. When she asked for more attention, he would withdraw. It was as if every attempt at connection created more distance. Susan had tried everything. She had read books on love languages. She had tried to be more understanding. She had tried to be more independent. She had even tried to provoke a little jealousy. Nothing worked. Mark remained emotionally distant, physically present but emotionally absent. Then one day Susan attended a Louise Hay seminar, and she heard this phrase, this specific phrase that I am now about to share with you. Susan was skeptical. How could a simple phrase change 8 years of established dynamics? But that evening, when Mark returned from work, Susan decided to try. She waited for the right moment, a calm moment, when they were sitting together on the couch, and then she said it, with the right energy, with the right tone, with the right intention. Mark's reaction was immediate. His eyes focused on her in a way that hadn't happened in years. He put down everything he was holding. He turned to her completely, and for the first time in months, Susan felt she had his full attention. But here's the most incredible thing. In the following days, Mark started behaving differently, without Susan having to repeat a single word. It was as if that hidden switch in his reptilian brain had been flipped. Suddenly he noticed when she was tired. He brought her coffee in the morning without being asked. He spontaneously hugged her. He became more present, more attentive, more protective. And all of this started with one sentence. A sentence that touched something deep within Mark's brain, something that awakened his dormant protective nature. Now, I know you're waiting for me to reveal this sentence, and I will. But first, I want you to understand why the way you say it is so important. Because the same words spoken with the wrong energy can have the opposite effect. They can push him even further away. Louise Hay discovered that the secret isn't in the words themselves. The secret lies in the energy of genuine emotional vulnerability you transmit while saying them. It's in being genuinely open, genuinely needing connection, but without desperation. It's in being strong enough to be vulnerable. This is the key that most women don't understand. They think that being vulnerable means being weak, but genuine vulnerability requires immense strength. It requires the courage to show your true essence without masks, without defenses, without strategies. And when he feels this genuine vulnerability, something in his DNA activates, something that goes back thousands of years, when men were programmed to protect those they loved. It's an instinct that still exists today, hidden beneath layers of modern stress and digital distractions. But it exists, and it can be awakened. Louise Hay's sentence does exactly that. It awakens this dormant instinct. It brings it to the surface. It makes it impossible to ignore. But wait, there's something I need to tell you before I reveal the sentence. Something that Louise Hay discovered studying neuroscience. The male brain has what scientists call problem-solving mode. When he senses you have a problem, His brain automatically seeks a solution, but if the problem seems too big or too vague, his brain freezes, it overloads, and his instinctive reaction is to withdraw. That's why sentences like, "You never listen to me," or "You're always distracted," don't work. They don't give him a specific problem to solve. They only give him a feeling of failure. And when a man feels like a failure, his primitive reaction is distance. It's protecting himself before protecting you. But Louise Hay found a way to bypass this mechanism. She found a way to communicate a need without making him feel criticized. She found a way to activate his protective mode instead of his defensive mode. Think about this. When was the last time you saw him truly galvanized, truly motivated to act? It was probably when he had a clear objective, a specific problem to solve, a mission to accomplish. Men are programmed for missions. They're programmed to be heroes in specific situations. Louise Hay's genius was understanding how to transform your emotional need into a specific mission for him. How to make him feel he can be your hero in a concrete and achievable way. And here comes the part that could change everything for you. The sentence I'm about to reveal isn't a request. It's not a disguised reproach. It's not even a question. It's something completely different. It's an opening. It's an invitation. It's a door that opens to your soul, and he can't help but walk through it. But before I tell you, I want you to do a mental exercise with me. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine him coming home tonight. Imagine his face when he crosses the threshold. What does he usually see? Does he see a tired woman waiting for something from him? Does he see a frustrated woman who has accumulated resentment during the day? Or does he see a woman radiating a quiet confidence in his ability to love her? This is crucial, because the energy with which you exist in the world directly influences how he perceives you. If you constantly live in a state of emotional deficiency, he feels it. His reptilian brain interprets it as pressure, and pressure activates his escape mechanisms. But if you live in a state of genuine fullness, with a strong and secure vulnerability, he feels that too. And his reptilian brain interprets it as an invitation to intimacy, as an opportunity to be your safe haven. Louise Hay spent years perfecting not only the right words, but the right energy. She understood that it's not enough to say the right thing. You have to be the right thing while saying it. And now comes the moment you've been waiting for. The sentence that changed Susan's relationship. The sentence that reactivated the protective switch in Mark's brain. The sentence that can transform even the most distracted partner into a completely present and attentive man. But before I tell you, I must warn you of something. This sentence works. It works so well that you might be tempted to use it too often. You might think that if it works once, it will always work. But like any powerful tool, it must be used wisely. It must be used when it's authentic. It must be used when it comes from a real need, not a strategy. Because you see, his brain is intelligent. It can distinguish between genuine vulnerability and emotional manipulation. If you use this sentence as a technique instead of as a genuine expression of your heart, he will feel it, and the effect will be the opposite of what you desire. But when you use it right, at the right time, with the right energy, it's like flipping a magic switch. Suddenly he can't ignore you. Suddenly you become his priority. Suddenly his protective instinct awakens, and you become again the woman who needs to be protected, cherished, loved. Susan told me that after using this sentence, Mark started noticing things he completely ignored before. He noticed when she was quiet. He noticed when she had a difficult day. He even noticed when she got a new haircut. It was as if he finally really saw her. And the best part? Susan no longer had to ask for attention. She no longer had to beg for a hug. She no longer had to feel invisible. Because that sentence had reactivated something primitive in Mark. Something that naturally pushed him to take care of her. Now, Louise Hay's sentence is this. I feel safe when I'm with you. Stop. I know. You're thinking, that's it? Is this the magic phrase? But wait, it's not the phrase itself. It's what that phrase activates in his primitive brain. It's the hidden message that reaches directly into his ancestral DNA. When you say, I feel safe when I'm with you, you're not asking for anything. You're not criticizing. You're not pressuring. You're doing something far more powerful. You're acknowledging his protective nature. You're telling his primitive brain, you are my refuge. You are my protection. You are what makes me feel safe in this chaotic world. And what happens in a man's brain when he hears this? The hero circuit, as neuroscientists call it, immediately activates. It's an ancient neurological pathway directly connected to his sense of masculine identity. When this circuit activates, he cannot ignore you. Literally, he cannot. But here's the secret Louise Hay uncovered through years of observation. This phrase only works if it's authentic, only if you truly feel safe with him. And if you're now thinking, but I don't feel emotionally safe with him, then you need to take a step back. You need to start seeing safety differently. I'm not talking about the emotional security in the sense of relationship guarantees. I'm talking about safety in the most primitive sense. The safety of knowing he would never intentionally hurt you. The safety of knowing you can be vulnerable in his presence. The safety of knowing that deep down, he cares for you. This is the safety you need to feel to say that phrase authentically. And when you say it with this energy, something magical happens. His brain receives the message, I am important to her. I am her safe harbor. I am necessary for her well-being. And when a man feels needed, not for the money he brings home, not for the problems he solves, but for the peace he brings to the woman he loves, everything changes. His attention sharpens. His presence intensifies. His protective instinct fully awakens. But wait, there's more. Louise Hay discovered this phrase has a ripple effect. When you say it once, the right way, he unconsciously starts looking for ways to make you feel even safer. He starts noticing what makes you uncomfortable and protecting you from it. He starts creating a bubble of emotional safety around you. Susan told me that after using this phrase, Mark started doing things he'd never done before. When they were out in public and someone spoke too loudly, he'd gently take her hand and guide her to a quieter spot. When she'd had a stressful day, he'd turn off the TV and ask her to tell him everything. Small things, but they showed his protective radar was finally on. But here's where it gets really interesting. Louise Hay discovered variations of this basic phrase can be used at specific moments to amplify the effect. For example, when he does something that makes you feel particularly cared for, you can say, when you do that, I feel completely protected. Or when you're going through a tough time, you can say, I don't know what I'd do without your presence. You give me a strength I didn't know I had. These aren't manipulations. They're authentic acknowledgments of his value in your life. And when a man feels his value recognized in this deep, primitive, instinctual way, his natural response is to intensify that behavior. But now I have to reveal something that might surprise you. Louise Hay discovered this technique works even if the relationship is in crisis, even if you've grown apart, even if he seems completely disinterested, because it touches something that goes beyond surface problems. It touches his deepest biological programming. However, and this is important, if the relationship is in crisis, you need to adjust your approach. You can't simply say, I feel safe with you. If you've just had a terrible fight, you'd sound insincere. You'd sound manipulative. In those cases, Louise Hay suggests starting with a subtler version. I like it when we're like this. Calm together. This phrase opens the door. It creates a moment of peace. And in that moment of peace, you can build toward the more powerful phrase. Or if he's particularly defensive, you can start with, You know something I appreciate about you? And then, whatever he answers, you say, how you make me feel safe being myself. See the pattern? You're not asking. You're not criticizing. You're creating a safe emotional space where his protective instinct can emerge naturally. But here's the part most women get wrong. They think saying the phrase once is enough. They think it's like flipping a switch that stays on forever. But the human brain needs reinforcement. It needs confirmation that what it's doing is right. So you need to become a detective of his protective nature. You need to start noticing all the little ways he already protects you, even if you don't realize it. The way he walks on the street side when you're together. The way he checks to make sure you lock the door. The way he worries when you come home late. And every time you notice these protective behaviors, you need to acknowledge them. It makes me feel so safe when you do that. I love how you take care of me this way. I feel lucky to have someone who protects me so naturally. This creates what Louise Hay calls the protector loop. The more you acknowledge his protective nature, the more he expresses it. The more he expresses it, the safer you feel. The safer you feel, the more you can be genuinely vulnerable. And the more you're genuinely vulnerable, the more his protective instinct intensifies. It's a virtuous cycle that feeds itself. But stop for a moment. Breathe. Feel the weight of these words. Because what I'm about to tell you is perhaps the most important part of everything we've discussed so far. Louise Hay made a discovery that completely changed her understanding of relationships. She discovered that a woman's need for safety and a man's need to feel needed are two sides of the same evolutionary coin. They are complementary. They are designed to work together. But modern society has created a disconnection. It has taught women that asking for safety is weakness, and it has taught men that their protective instinct is obsolete or even problematic. The result? Women who feel emotionally vulnerable but don't know how to communicate it, and men who possess a powerful protective instinct but don't know how to express it in a world that tells them it's unnecessary. Louise Hay's phrase reconnects these two needs. It allows her to express her need for security in a way that honors his masculine nature instead of criticizing it, and it allows him to express his protective instinct in a way that nurtures her instead of suffocating her. But here's where it gets really deep. Louise Hay realized that when you use this phrase, you're not just changing his behavior, you're changing something within yourself. You're starting to see him through the lens of gratitude. Instead of deficiency, you're starting to notice his protective qualities instead of focusing on his shortcomings. And this shift in your perception changes everything. It changes your energy. It changes how you move in the world. It changes how he perceives you. Susan is another perfect example. Susan had been married to Mark for 12 years. 12 years of marriage that had become more of a cohabitation than a relationship. Mark worked long hours, came home tired, watched TV, and went to bed. Susan felt like she was living with a roommate instead of a husband. But then Susan learned Louise Hay's technique. The first time she said, "I feel safe when I'm with you." Mark had a strange reaction. He stopped mid-gesture, looked at her with a confused expression, as if he didn't quite understand what he had heard. But in the following days, something changed. Mark started asking questions. "How was your day? Do you need anything from the store? Want to watch something together tonight?" Small things, but they were the first signs that his emotional radar was reigniting. And Susan started noticing things about Mark she had forgotten. The way he always checked that the car had gas before she went out. The way he always left the light on when she came home late. The way that, even on the most stressful days, he never raised his voice at her. These were all forms of protection that Mark had always offered, but that Susan had stopped seeing. Louise Hay's phrase hadn't just reactivated Mark's protective instinct. It had reactivated Susan's ability to recognize and appreciate it. And here comes the part that could completely change your perspective. Louise Hay discovered that the phrase works even when you don't feel particularly safe. It works even when you're angry with him. It works even when the relationship is going through a rough patch. Why? Because when you say, "I feel safe with you," authentically, even if it's only a small part of you that feels it, you're giving energy to that part instead of the part that feels insecure. You're nurturing the best version of your relationship instead of the worst. And when you consistently nurture the best version of something, that version grows. It becomes stronger. It becomes more present. It becomes more real. But here's the final secret that Louise Hay discovered. The phrase works best when you say it in moments of calm, not in moments of crisis. When you're sitting together in the evening, when he hugs you in the morning, when you're walking together, moments where there's no pressure, no tension, no hidden agenda. In those moments, the phrase arrives pure. It arrives as a gift instead of a request. And when it arrives as a gift, the effect is multiplied. Louise Hay always said, "You can't force someone to love you the way you need to be loved, but you can create the conditions for that love to emerge naturally." And this phrase creates exactly those conditions. It creates a safe emotional space where he can be the protector he's programmed to be. It creates a space where you can be vulnerable without being weak. It creates a space where you can both be the best versions of yourselves in the relationship. And when you're both the best versions of yourselves, the magic happens naturally. The attention you seek begins to flow spontaneously. The connection you crave begins to develop organically. The love you feel you deserve begins to manifest daily. But remember, this isn't a trick. It's not manipulation. It's an authentic recognition of something that already exists within him. It's a way to awaken his noblest instinct instead of criticizing his shortcomings. And when you awaken a person's noblest instinct, that person can't help but rise to meet it. They can't help but become the best version of themselves. They can't help but love you the way you deserve to be loved. Maybe the door wasn't ever really closed. Maybe you were the one who didn't know how to turn the knob the right way. Maybe he's always been there, waiting only to feel that his presence in your life is not just tolerated, but celebrated, that his protective nature isn't a flaw to be corrected, but a gift to be honored. And when you start to see him that way, when you start speaking to the best of him instead of the worst, you'll discover that the man you've always wanted him to be has always been there, waiting only for the right key to emerge. And that key has been in your hands all along.